Welcome to the Evening Review. My name is Ohana Klache, and joining us in studio is the Principal Officer of the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund, Mr. Enwich Kazondo. How are you, sir?
No, great and happy to be here.
This morning, you had there was an engagement held with regards to the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund. Perhaps just help in providing an overview of the fund.
All right, the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund is basically an umbrella fund registered and dedicated to serve members or employees in the construction sector. This fund was registered in 1990. That was on the 1st of May as a result of a collective agreement between the Metal and Allied Namibian Workers Union and the Construction Industry Federation. So that was basically the birth of the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund.
Okay. From past experience, we know that there was difficulty in coming from the construction industry, particularly to reach a sort of like a basic wage. Yes. Now, does it mean that there has been enough efforts also made from the part of employers to provide this social benefit or social safety net for the employees? What is the experience of the fund in that regard?
All right, one should really give credit where it's due. And one of the major parties that played a significant role is really the CIF, and as well as the union, although they are representing two different and respective sectors, one representing the employer and one representing the employee. But credit needs to go to them, that they actually forged for the formulation of the pension fund for this industry. It is the only industry pension fund that is actually private, as opposed to a government pension fund such as the GIPF. Yeah.
Okay. And then what are some of the challenges you would say in having construction workers, or rather blue-collar workers, sign up for the pension fund? Is there enough education in terms of financial education? Is there enough appetite for them to take up products such as this?
Yeah, well, in terms of the construction sector, one of the major challenge is the issue of short-term contracts. And it's not just a particular company problem, but it's an industry issue. There is no other way that one can have it. The construction sector is basically a short-term contract sector. One can never have a construction project indefinitely.
Yes.
So that in itself posed as a concern to the pension industry, as it is very difficult to administer members of a pension fund that actually have precarious work. That actually means that a member that joins your fund after a couple of months would then exit due to the fact that he or she has lost his job.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's the nature of the industry, that will be the business of the industry, and it will become a norm. So that made it very difficult for pension funds or administrators of pension funds to actually dedicate themselves to the construction sector. But the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund took up this challenge, despite the challenges in the sector. But we looked at the bigger picture. These are Namibian citizens. They deserve this social protection. And here we are. How many years later? We have the Building Workers Pension Fund still standing with very good assets to boast about, despite the challenges really in the sector.
And then those challenges that you've just mentioned, has it ever occurred in a situation where the construction workers would are making withdrawals from the pension fund such that it affects the sustainability of the fund? And how have you worked around that?
Well, obviously that is a challenge. Any pension fund administrator will not say it is a good thing for employees to be withdrawing their pensions before their retirement age. However, as we have the laws of the country, and currently in its current format, there is no limitation from an employee to withdraw before he or she has reached his retirement age. As such, the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund does allow their members to withdraw. And the reason why the rules of the fund were actually formulated in this manner, despite the challenge that it brings along, is the fact that during times where our members are actually out on retrenchment, if they are no longer attached to a specific company, at least they can rely on these savings that they have saved in their pension, and that will actually allow them to survive until the next contract comes along. So that is the benefit that the members could enjoy at the time. But one has to understand the fact that we are going through changes. There is the issue of FIMA, where preservation is one issue that is obviously being discussed. But if that is the direction that the country is moving in, obviously as a pension fund, we will have to adapt and we'll have to toe the line, basically.
In terms of efforts to sort of widen the reach of the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund, what are some of the reforms that you've undertaken just to ensure that you can get as much coverage as possible amongst construction workers?
All right. Since inception, the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund kept its contribution levels pretty low. Since inception, our contribution levels were at 4% employer contribution and 4% employee contribution. That is relatively low if one look at the pension industry. But then this was done deliberately to keep the pension contributions basically affordable to the construction worker that was earning relatively low at the time. However, over the years, there has been increases in the construction sector. Really, it is one of the sectors that can actually be proud and say that they have done very well in terms of regular increases year in, year out, dedicated to the employees in the sector. As such, employees started feeling that they are able to afford contributions higher than that. And as well as other employees that are not necessarily regulated in terms of their minimum wages. We have professionals in the construction sector. These professionals, obviously due to their relatively high income, are able to afford something better than the 4%. But due to these low contribution levels, they were not really accommodated in the fund. Thus, they had to seek for alternatives. While they had full intentions of really being true to their pension, which was started for the intention of serving the construction sector. So since last year, that is 2022, we have applied and successfully NAMFISA approved a rule amendment, which then basically opened up the fund in terms of contribution levels that the fund could then accept. So basically the 4% contribution became a minimum standard, basically. So an employer can come on the 4% contribution or anything higher as defined between the two parties. This is obviously to accommodate higher income earners that can afford that. And as well as the rule amendment also allowed for membership that are not necessarily from the construction sector. So we are talking about industries that are closely related to the construction sector. For instance, we have the engineers, we have the quality surveyors. These are professionals that are impacted and affected by the construction sector directly. And as a result, their contracts most of the time are also short-term. And due to that, they do not actually belong anywhere. So now they can say they can become proud members of the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund because the rules have changed and can accommodate them.
More on this after the commercial break. Please stay tuned.
E-Ticket, your online ticket solution for events and event marketing, bringing you ease of mind and making sure that your event gets out there. For more information, contact events@nmh.com.na.
Neopaints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neopaints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neopaints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
We are so excited to be kickstarting your morning with entertainment. Everything was happening during this past weekend.
Yes.
Exciting news.
Wow, no, she was killing it already.
In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with him serving the full term.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
Welcome back. Now, last year, particularly, there were mooted changes to the FIMA Act, which will look at preservation. Where, for example, now, if I were to leave my job, I could only access probably 25%, and then the 75% that is left is locked in until I reach retirement age. Are you happy with the consultation done by NAMFISA as a stakeholder with regards to FIMA as a pension fund administrator, as a pension fund?
Well, in terms of consultation on FIMA as a whole, one can say that proper consultation to a certain extent was done in terms of the industry. As a pension fund, we are members of ARFIN, and these are basically our representatives, and we give our view through them. So as members of ARFIN, we have submitted our view, and we have submitted our collective view on all the aspects of FIMA. Now, one needs to understand that the issue of preservation is just one part. And one cannot necessarily state that FIMA in its entirety, it's something that is not positive or that does not bear any positives for the pension fund industry. In fact, I can attest to you now that it has more good than bad. Now, but then this particular issue of preservation, it's a matter that really touches the employees. And one understands that the employees were of the view that they were not properly consulted. And as a pension fund, during our last roadshow of 2022, since we heard this outcry of non-consultation, we took it upon ourselves to engage the members of the fund during the last roadshow, and we actually ran a survey while we were busy with that roadshow. And basically the results were very clear that the members were not in favor of this preservation that is imposed by the regulations. But one understands, if you really look at the nature of the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund, as earlier stated, that despite the long-term savings that certain members of the fund are able to, because they are fortunate enough to be employed for long periods of time. The majority of our members are on short-term contracts, and it's a reality of the sector. And it makes it very difficult for a member of the fund to then say, only give me a 30% of my total savings, 70%, keep it until I turn 60. It's quite difficult because this person knows very well that for the next possibly 6 months, he needs to hunt and wait for the next capital project in order for him to secure a construction job. So that makes it a bit difficult for the Namibia Building Workers Pension Fund to really behind the government or full force and say preservation is a good thing, because we really need to also listen to our own membership as well. Yes.
That conversation or that decision has not yet been made regarding preservation, but should it come into being, how do you see it affecting your pension fund and the members of that pension fund?
Well, it's going to have a huge impact on the fund. We are afraid that it will discourage, first of all, the employees to partake in any pension fund. Because they know very well, and particularly for this specific sector, they know that the main reason why they save as construction workers is really for that day when they no longer have a contract and they have to wait for the next contract. So if that benefit is basically removed from them, I do not see a reason why these members would wish to continue with savings on a long term. Yes, we know the intentions, and it's really good intentions from the government. We know that the intention of the pension fund is really for that one day when you are no longer fit to work. But the reality of the sector speaks for itself. Yeah.
As a pension fund, what are some of the recommendations that you would like NAMFISA to look at in terms of preservation, or just in entirety the FIMA Act that you feel could perhaps aid industry or the members or the very important stakeholders who will become the would-be pensioners one day?
Can you repeat that again?
I'm just saying, what are some of the recommendations that you would want to see NAMFISA probably look at in terms of FIMA or just preservation?
All right. As earlier stated, I do understand the intention, and it's really a positive. The intention is positive. However, we feel that maybe proper and further consultation is required, number one. And number two, proper education needs to be given to all the employees out there. It's easy for a white collar worker to understand the importance of this preservation, but then we don't necessarily agree with the efforts that were made to educate the members who are on the low end in terms of employment. So we feel that further education is required before one can really get the true view of the workers before making that decision to implement this mandatory preservation. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Evening Review.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in.